All right, we're back. Part 3 of Tim Pool versus Sam Seder. Let's go.
I expect them to,
I don't know, January 6, 2.0.
Well, I think this time around, people are going to be a lot more attuned to the potential of that
Charlie,
happening.
thank
So
you
I
for the
think they're
gifted
going to
membership.
inhibit it.
Would that also include
right.
the people who would perpetrate it?
Well, I'm unclear what you're saying.
Tim Pool is such a brainlet, man. Akumi, thank you for the $5 dono. Deadpool has no opinions on the police as an organization. He just loves a man or woman in uniform. True. You know, I also think
Deadpool has no opinions on the police as an organization. He just loves a man or woman in uniform.
I also think that Deadpool would find it fun for a limited amount of time to like cosplay as a cop and pretend to do cop things that he's seen on television. I do think that would be Deadpool's thing. Yeah, true. In Wolverine and Deadpool, the cops shoot Wolverine in the head. All right, let's go. Let's go.
If you're saying that people are attuned to expect a January 6th, would that not also include those who seek to perpetrate a January 6th? Meaning they will be prepared for countermeasures.
I mean, I guess that's conceivable, but I don't think that's a civil war at that point.
No,
I think
I agree,
actually the way that I think there's going to be civil strife. I don't think there's going to be some mass movement. I think that once Trump,
hey, we were literally talking about exactly this for like 30 or 40 minutes. We literally had this exact conversation.
In the event that he loses, I think over time there's just going to be less interest in the guy.
So you
don't spoil. Look, don't worry. I have not spoiled a single thing about Deadpool and Wolverine or Wolverine and Deadpool. I forget. Don't worry about it. It's not a spoiler.
I don't think he's going to run again in 4 years. I mean, he can barely stand now.
Do you believe that there is a single-digit probability of a second January 6th type event? Trump loses and then his supporters come out in mass.
I think that, I mean, it's conceivable that there's an event, but he doesn't have control of the government in this instance where he did before.
Yep.
And so...
But people just showed up. Like, they weren't government actors, the 200,000 who showed up in D.C. that day.
Well, I mean, he planned a rally on the Ellipse. I mean,
he could tweet that out again, and it could happen again.
He could tweet that out, but there's not going to be a rally. He's not.
Yeah, he also doesn't have institutional power this time around. Like, not having institutional power makes that like an exponentially more risky play. You know,
going to be able to have a rally there. He's just not going to get a permit.
You think Trump supporters would not show up if he asked them to show up because he doesn't have a permit?
I think there would be a lot less, yes, without a doubt.
So,
people thought there was going to be riots down at his courtroom appearances in New York City, and there was
waving flags and stuff.
There was not many people at all.
So when
I really do think that he is more of a paper tiger now. Now, are there fringe groups like militias that get inspired by him and the Republicans? Yes, we've always had those, though.
What percentage of people fought in the American Revolution?
How many
what was the percentage of the American population that actually fought?
I mean, we had 500,000 deaths, I would say, in the 1860s. I don't know. Maybe 10%?
I think 10's the academic number. There's a lot of people. Have you heard of the Three Percenters?
It's some right-wing militia group, right?
And the name comes from 3% of the American population fought in the American Revolution. So academics lean more towards like 10% or so. But the important factor there is it does not take very many people at all to instigate civil war. It takes actually only a couple. And that creates a scenario where dominoes...
And do you think that's more likely to happen with people on the right or on the left in this country?
In different ways equally. But there's a substantial difference.
Different ways equally.
What does that mean, dude?
So you think it's the same probability that it would come from the left as it would the right?
I don't know. I could calculate probabilities. I can say that the left has already created several autonomous zones.
How many left-wing militias are there?
Hundreds.
the left has already created several autonomous zones. Man, Chaz lives in these guys' heads rent free. The like Portland autonomous zone that they made like 8 years ago lives in their head rent free. It's like a specter. It's crazy. They like they like blocked off like 2 blocks and had a gigantic party for like, I don't know, 3 days. And to Tim Pool, this is like the epitome of chaos. That the Chaz, was it 2020 or was it 2016? Genuinely, I do not remember how long ago it was because it mattered so little. Like when push came to shove, police just walked in, undid the barricades, and then like it was business as usual.
Hundreds of left-wing
Familiar with
militias.
the John Brown Gun Club or the Red Guard, 2 prominent ones. Rose City Antifa may not be a militia, but they certainly did participate
So
in
you've
taking
got
over
2
several
militias.
cities.
How many people are in that? I mean, off the top of my head, I can name, like the 3 percenters, the Oath Keepers, those Bundy folks.
That's not a militia.
There are there's
How many can you name? 2?
well, I mean, there's neo-Nazi groups.
Come on.
There's-
Don't tell me I need to name them all. If you're not going to name any.
I don't. Well, you can. I'm sure you can. I mean, let's
I actually
let's be-
can't. I can think of.
So you think there's the same amount of right-wing militias as there are left-wing
Never said
militias
that.
in this?
I said that we've already seen the left take over several city blocks for months on end and kill people.
And
And what was it in Portland? How many people were killed? 2 or 3? In Provo, Utah, a guy ran up to a car and just shot a guy for no reason. That was reckless insurgency. In Minnesota, you had the George Floyd Autonomous Zone for like 2 years. In Atlanta, you
No, they didn't. I live in Minnesota. There wasn't a George Floyd autonomous zone. There was like there's George Floyd Square where they like erected like a monument, like a little like memorial for him. And that wasn't blocked off. You can literally drive through it. You could drive through it the entire time. It was just a spot like right next to where he lived. Like, not where he lived, where he died. Like, it's not... Like, man, he just hears these stories and like fabricates whole cloth what he think happened there. Like, that's his whole thing, you know? It really is that nuts.
had the Wendy's autonomous zone. You've had numerous attempts.
The what?
Autonomous zone for like 2 years. In Atlanta, you had the Wendy's autonomous zone.
What are you talking about, bro? Think of the Wendy's. Think of the Wendy's. No one's ever heard of that. Though, I'm going to look this up, Tim. I'm going to look this up, okay? The Wendy's autonomous zone. By the way, this wasn't even like one of the first things. Like, Google doesn't even autocomplete this because it was from 3 years ago. Let's look at this. Gang members established autonomous zone in Atlanta. Killed 8-year-old girl during police protest. Okay, this was after the Rayshard Brooks in Atlanta. Violent gang members laid siege to a local Wendy's to protest his death, establishing an autonomous zone with a strict no trespassing policy for police officers or pedestrians before shooting and killing an 8-year-old girl, according to a warrant obtained by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Members of the Blood Street Gang established a perimeter around the Wendy's. Okay, so the Wendy's autonomous zone was quite literally just a Wendy's building. It was quite literally just a Wendy's. They took over a Wendy's. Are the Bloods a leftist organization now? Really? I need to be clear right now. Tim Pool is saying that the Bloods taking over a Wendy's franchise and saying it's an autonomous zone was, in his mind, a bunch of leftists taking over and establishing an independent governing state. Insane.
You've had numerous attempts. I mean, in Seattle with the Chaz Chop, you had armed guards outside, took over a police station and killed people. They unloaded hundreds of rounds from rifles into a white SUV with 2 teenagers in it.
What are the Bloods? The Bloods are like a really big street gang that span like quite a large area of the United States. One of the larger ones.
So if we're going to ignore the wave of mass violence, the 36 deaths in 2020, and act like only the right is capable.
Bloods are red, commies are red, same. Yeah, exactly. Blood is red, commies are red. Exactly. Okay, I see his logic here.
Capable of violence. It's silly.
Well, we have data from this. We have data from the Department of Justice.
Sure, and it's
right-wing authoritarian
which one has the higher
right-wing
probability,
militias.
but we do know that both are capable, and we don't know to what degree is required to start a
You and I
conflict.
both know what the bulk of people who own weapons in this country. We can look at the Department of Justice, regardless of who has been head of the administration, and see that they have been saying for decades that these militias exist on the right, and they're far more prominent. They're far more dangerous.
But I never made an equivalence. I said
fact.
no to that question.
You're not making an equivalence.
You asked me if I thought there was equal probability. I said no.
Oh, which has more probability?
Yeah, the right in 100%.
Oh, so the right. Okay.
I never
We're
said
in
that-
agreement. All right, fine.
Right. That's why I don't
We
know.
both agree that if there is a threat from civil war, it comes from the right in this country.
That's an absolute statement that I didn't make.
Oh,
Okay.
God.
Probably
We both
God,
agree.
dude. Oh
right
my
is a
God.
larger-
Probabilistically.
This is so infuriating. How can okay, I do have to say, Sam has now been sitting here for 2 hours. Okay? 2 hours and 10 minutes. He's been sitting here. The fact that he's able to maintain this paternalistic air of calm towards Tim as he baby walks Tim to different points is a testament to A, how much he's enjoying this, and B, how absolutely saint-like his patience is. It is crazy. It is crazy.
Threat for destabilization on the left.
Why are you sort of like trying to obfuscate what you're saying? There's
because-
more of a chance if there's a civil war that it's going to come from the right than the left.
Agreed.
Okay, great.
Yeah, but I was never in disagreement on that.
Oh,
Not
I'm
once
sorry.
in any of my content have I ever said that. The question is, though, what does it mean to instigate a civil war? What does it mean to be the first shot fired? These are deep
upholding the
deep academic
laws-
questions that go back to historical conflicts where we try to determine what started the war. And then you'll get people making arguments about when it really started, when it didn't. A big question of the war in 1861 is, for us, we know it started with Fort Sumter, but at the time, they didn't think Civil War started until well after the fact. To the degree that at the Battle of Bull Run, they were picnicking. Despite we know historically the Civil War started, they did not make that determination. So you could argue history is written by the victors. In the event that the right, and the reason why I say that there's a greater risk for civil war from the right is they're the ones actively calling for national divorce, which is a mistake. They're the ones who are more likely to, January 6th, for instance, was bad. The left, while they riot and there
At
is
least we
violence
can
from
agree
them,
on that one.
it is what I would call blunt. Widespread, low impact. On the right, it's typically high impact, not as widespread. January 6th was a riot in one of the worst ways imaginable at a Capitol building during the election, the counting of the electoral vote, the certification. That's what I would call acute domestic violence.
And that was also
Tim, there was nothing cute about that.
really going towards the heart of a civil society, which is the peaceful transfer of power. I mean, to the extent that there were riots or protests, the idea was to change public policy, to show dissatisfaction with the police state or the state of policing. That is not a undermining of the fundamental principles of the way that the of basically undercutting across the board
So
the political process.
the issue is that I see is that if you're saying something like the threat comes from the right, well, let's parse that down. There is a higher probability of instability or conflict arising from actions on the right because their actions tend to be acute. January 6th, sharp and extremely potentially dangerous. The left, however, does show a different propensity for violence, which we call blunt, obtuse. That is, the widespread riots of 2020 were not targeted at a Capitol building during an election, but they were substantially larger, resulting in around 30 or so deaths. I think we attribute around 20 plus to the direct riots, and then there were ancillary deaths as a result of the actions of the riots. There were the seizure of autonomous zones, like in Seattle. There was an attempt in Portland, Minnesota, Atlanta, and when we're talking about what could ignite a civil war, you don't need only acute, but it is a higher risk. That is, you will more likely hear on the news a guy goes into a church and shoots a bunch of people because of how extreme and psychotic it is, though it happens substantially less than leftists punching someone in the head. Nobody really cares if a fight breaks out in the middle of Portland. We're not going to report on that. That's stupid. But if you get to the point where you get a Summer of Love 2020, with a Donald Trump in office, and this time around he says, I'm sending in the National Guard, you may end up with conflict, civil strife, insurgency instigated by left violence. Whereas with the right, you could get January 6 2.0, where they injure politicians.
I'm like sitting here in amazement to the extent that you have have contemplated these things that and have created this whole sort of like the macro associated with it that is, I think, like incredibly unlikely. A and B. Like,
I never said it was incredibly likely.
No, I'm just
Oh my God.
I know that. I'm amazed. You know, like one of the things that the last video, and we didn't get a chance to talk about Social Security. I think you had brought it up before the show.
I was reading Forbes.
But the one of the things that I'm amazed about is how, and I think this is sort of was my point about you bringing it up so much. I suppose I can understand why like the Atlantic wants to make an opinion piece on it because it's sort of like clickbaity stuff, but the depth in which you are, you go into these scenarios, which again, I think are incredibly unlikely, and also some attempt to create some type of equivalence, although you do concede that the probability is higher on this is going to come from the right, versus like Social Security.
Well, real quick, I'll answer your point before you get to Social Security. I do think it's a bit unfair for you to ask me why I think a thing and then get mad that I brought it up.
Well, no,
criticize me
I
for
mean,
doing
like
you say, how could the left do this? Well, here's one way. Haha, why did you even think of something like that?
You haven't answered that question.
You can ask me about quantum
blunt,
physics and
you just talking
well,
about
if you can't
like
understand
blunt
it,
violence.
I can't help you.
Yeah, I mean,
This is crazy. Like,
Sam's boomer dad energy and calm always gives me life. He's speaking to Tim like he's a disappointing child KEKW.
yeah, no, he really is. Like, and the kind of the wonderful part of this is watching Tim. Like, Tim has officially moved into being uncomfortable with this power dynamic. He's been uncomfortable the entire time, mind you, but like, I think now he's trying to posture to get out from underneath Sam, like in an intellectual way. Like, he's trying to throw out buzzwords that he is fairly confident that Sam doesn't know anything about. Like, he tried this earlier with guns, and Sam was just like, I'm not getting into the minutia of guns with you. And now he's trying to do it again with quantum physics, and I guarantee you, the amount of knowledge that Tim has on quantum physics, like, Sam's just gonna go like, what does that have to do with anything, Tim? And Tim's gonna be like, well, like, I guess nothing. Or like try and like pull out buzzwords that he thinks Sam won't know about. He's literally just throwing out terms like the same way he threw out Wendy's autonomous zone, as if a Wendy's being taken over briefly by the Bloods in in a specific city was something that anyone else was going to remember from 3 years ago.
I think
We can talk about quantum physics and the
Please.
organization
No.
of nature, entropy, and
Please. I want to hear Tim talk about quantum physics with Sam so badly, but it's not going to happen.
entropy.
no.
But if you don't ask me about those things, you can't get mad that I talk about the things you
No,
asked me
I
to talk
understand.
about.
I understand. I just said I was amazed at the depth in which you do that relative to how much little time you spend on something like just even learning the basics of something like Social Security, which essentially our government does three things. It is a war machine. And then provides Medicare and Social Security. I mean, just on a per dollar basis.
Well,
And-
I think it's fair to point out, as pertaining to Social Security, is if I'm going to read The Atlantic and comment on it, criticize me for having unoriginal thoughts. If I'm going to read Forbes and comment on it, criticize me for having unoriginal thoughts.
No, I don't think you should have original thoughts. I mean, the part of this job is not.
No.
to-
My point is, your issue with my take on Social Security is just because I read The Atlantic and Forbes that day.
Well,
And they were wrong, I guess. I don't know.
Maybe you misread it,
I
but
read Forbes saying that insolvency is coming and the system can't sustain itself because on average you need 2.8 to 4 workers to maintain a single recipient.
No.
And I said, well, hold on. That
who
doesn't
did you
work.
read? Wait, when you
Oh man, please tell me that Tim is about to, in a fit of anger, try and talk to Sam Seder as if as if Tim knows anything about the solvency of Social Security. Please. Social Security is like Sam's bread and butter. That is Sam's red meat. And I want to see Tim Pool try and attack Social Security when Sam is just like, that's his wheelhouse, man. That is his wheelhouse. Get good sleep, Alan Smith. Get good sleep.
say Forbes, who was the writer?
Oh, pull up the video when we pull up the Forbes art. Want to pull it up?
I mean, one of the things that I think, when you brought up all the Dave Rubin videos I do, or we do a lot of videos about you, we got 230,000 views on that Social Security video,
Damn.
and I can tell you, I've talked about Social Security so many times, never gotten those type of numbers, but your presentation and lack of awareness about it gave me the opportunity to explain Social Security to 200,000
Your utter buffoonish levels of incompetence gave me the opportunity is such an own, man.
people that wouldn't do it. But it was stunning. That's the
You
thing.
do talk
that-
about me a lot.
Well, I mean, because of honestly, in instances like that, like I say, no one's going to listen to a dry diatribe about Social Security. But when you come out with such misinformation based upon, I guess you read an article or two that day,
Indeed, it is.
and it's literally one of the largest, like 1/3 of our government, at least in terms of dollars, is Social Security. And you read 2 articles that day in Forbes. You don't know by whom or what their perspective was.
Yes, I don't
You-
memorize every article I read.
Listen, I understand. But you then pontificate and say Social Security is a dumb idea. You don't realize that increase in productivity means that while it may have been, 2 workers for every.
This is fucking incredible. This is incredible. By the way, if Tim had bothered to like prepare for this in any way, Tim would know not to go on this, go into this with Sam on this. Like, this is incredible stuff.
Every one Social Security person back in the day, or I should say vice versa, 1 worker for every 2 retirees. Now it can be 1 worker for every 4 retirees because of increase in productivity. And Social Security is not going insolvent. There's a trust fund that was established during the Reagan era, and that will last for another 10 years if we don't do anything else. But everything else in
I'm
this
in complete
country
agreement
will go broke.
I'm in complete agreement with you as one of the challenges we face. A lot of people like to attribute to me, and I say this as many times as I can, I just read the news and opine on it. That's
Do
really
you?
just,
One of the things that I have criticized you for in the past is that you don't go in depth with the serious stuff and actually like learn about this stuff, and you opine about it,
From
which
reading
it's
the
your
news.
well, but you're not reading it very well because
I'm just reading what the paragraph says. Here's CNBC.
Incredible,
Trust fund reserves
dog.
used to pay beneficiaries are projected to become insolvent by 2035.
well, what does that mean?
Oh my god. Oh my god. Like, this is incredible. An incredible opportunity to demonstrate to Tim's audience just how bad Tim is at this. Okay? Just how bad he
Baconators
is.
for the people. By decree of the Wendy's Autonomous Zone.
G. Klein, thank you for the $10 super chat. And yes, Baconators for the people. So Sam is about to demonstrate exactly the depth of knowledge that Tim lacks while just reading the news, right? Like, you need to be able to, like, what does that mean? What does it mean for Social Security to go insolvent? And how could one avoid that seemingly bad outcome, right? Now, if Tim understood Social Security, he would know that you could raise the cap on, like, the Social Security tax, and it would be solvent for basically ever. Because I believe the cap is currently somewhere around like $120,000 or $200,000. I know that it's like 6 digits and like $200,000. It's up there. But like, if you just raise the cap,
Tim is
not a
reading
problem.
without comprehension.
Exactly, Charlie. Like, this is effectively the equivalent of someone who has mastered, you know, in grade school has mastered rote memorization, but cannot tell you why something works. This is why in like math class, teachers want you to show your work so that you can demonstrate you know how to get from point A to point B, and not that just that you memorized that 2 plus 12 plus 12 is 24 or something like that, you know. Also, thank you for the $5 super chat.
It only that what comes in is able to go.
Why is there a cap again? To protect rich assholes. That's why. It's so that rich people don't just keep paying more and more and more into Social Security, when that's exactly how the system should work. Is the max 147K? Okay, I'll take you at your word there.
Go out.
Okay, and so what's the cuts on that?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, what comes in, what goes out. So, like, all right,
You have to increase taxes or increase the worker load.
right? Not the worker load, but the
Amount of
trust-
workers.
What when the trust fund runs out? How much is what will payments be?
I don't know.
Okay, that's a pretty important aspect of this, right? I mean, this is the incuriosity that you have about
What's
the
incurious
basic.
about it?
You're not interested in what that means? You know that the trust fund is insolvent in 10 years, but you don't know what the implications of that.
The implications are older people will not have money and younger people have to pay more money.
When you say older people will not have money, how much less?
This is incredible.
Well, it depends on what the government decides they're going to allocate.
No.
when money's not-
No. It's already set in stone. There's no
Okay. What is it?
allocation. It's 85% of benefits will be paid out.
Uh-huh.
There'll be a loss of 15% benefits. But it's not necessarily younger people are going to have to pay money.
New workers will have to.
No. They're always going to have to pay, hopefully, with Social Security, unless the Republicans have their ability to cut it. But
Oh, you're right. It actually says 83%. So there you go.
yeah,
Oh, you were wrong, Sam.
I was off by 2%. You're right. But these numbers, we should say, this is also, we should be clear.
Well, I
there
accept-
are three things
I
in the
accept.
actuarial state. But let me just say this about Social
But I
Security.
accept your argument. You are correct, and I apologize. I just read the story. I read the news, and I made an assessment about it, as I tend to do.
Yeah.
Oh my god, dude. I read the news and I made an assessment about it, as I tend to do. But like, you talk about politics for your job, man. You've done this for 12 years now. Have you never had any curiosity about one of the biggest and most popular social safety programs that we have? How much does this bald make? He makes $1 million a month, according to his citation. So, like, he makes a lot of money.
I think you need to, like, on some of these bigger issues,
Have a little bit
you've
of
clearly
intellectual
gone very
curiosity,
deep into the
clearly.
Civil War thing, which we both agree has a very low chance of happening, somewhere above zero.
We don't really talk about Social Security all that often. I think like 3 or 4 times.
It's the most important function of our government.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
We went a bit over, but I do want to talk to you about abortion. Do you want to do like
Sure.
10 minutes? We can talk about
Sure.
abortion. What are your thoughts on where we're currently at? Like, what do you think we should be doing?
What do I think we should be doing? Well, we should at the very least be reestablishing Roe v. Wade statutorily.
True.
I think the Supreme Court.
Oh man, he's about to say some real stupid shit. He's about to say, I can feel it. I can feel it coming through the force.
Was wrong, and I believe that the 14th Amendment.
Also, just as an FYI, the day that Roe v. Wade got repealed, he celebrated on his show with his co-hosts.
Requires that the federal government make a ruling specifically on the issue of abortion. What that becomes, I don't know, but the concept of personhood needs to be ruled on one way or the other. So this is not a state issue. Trump is wrong about that.
But the personhood should no. I don't believe in personhood in the womb.
Right. So you think the Supreme Court should say no personhood in the womb?
Definitely.
I think the Supreme Court needs to answer one way or the other.
Well, I mean, it would put some things to rest. I don't think they're going to do that. I mean,
Trump is saying it should be a state's issue, and I believe that is absolutely incorrect.
No, I think we had an individual right that existed in this country for 50 years, and it was rolled back. We've never had anything like that whatsoever. I think it's it
is an
unprecedented
unprecedented
right that when taken away, deprives people who have babies their sovereignty over their own body, and it's both an economic issue and a personal liberty issue.
What do you think there should be restrictions
on abortion?
Yeah.
I mean, the problem with restrictions, like, for instance, we say only in the case of, let's say, a danger to a woman, or a woman's life, is that is extremely difficult to assess where that line is. And we've seen this. 2 women have died at least in Texas as a function of the abortion ban that they have there. We also know that infant mortality in the wake of the Texas thing, because there's been studies on this, increased 15% in the wake of the abortion ban there. So in general, I would say that restrictions are in practice not viable, not doable, because you end up costing women their lives. I think that to the extent that I would have restrictions, I think you need a medical provider to provide abortions, that go past the maybe midway through the second trimester.
But, do you think that with elective abortion should be available up to 9 months?
If it is I think that is the safest route for women if it is done by a medical provider. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do we have zero recourse whatsoever over the justices lying about Roe v. Wade in order to, in their confirmation hearings? I thought those were conducted under oath because it doesn't matter if they break their oath. Fundamentally, there is no checks on the people in the Supreme Court once they become justices. There is no way to hold them accountable, really. They're made to be just permanently part of the legislative branch, not legislative branch. What's the term? God, brain. Judiciary branch. There we go. God. Sorry, been going for 8 hours straight, guys. A little bit of slack needs to be cut. But basically, there's nothing you can do. If Congress had a supermajority, maybe you could do something. It's kind of like where Congress can, put the president on trial, but it's just a partisan endeavor, so it doesn't functionally do anything unless you have a supermajority in both houses, both in the House and the Senate. Same thing with the court. So there's nothing that actually binds the Supreme Court outside of Congress. You could pack the court, but that wouldn't like hold justices accountable. It would just make their position more watered down, I guess. You know? And yeah, tipster, of course. There are valid medical reasons why someone may need a late term abortion. I don't think that there would be this epidemic of people, which Republicans seem to conjure out of the ether anytime abortion is a topic, where there are going to be like women or non-binary people or trans men that like get pregnant and then wait until month number 9 and then they're like, time to do some baby killing, and then just like kill fetuses for fun. I don't think that there is this kind of person. Maybe in human history, in the population of Earth right now, you might be able to find like one. But I don't think ruling around that kind of an outlier is fair when it punishes like other women who need them for out of medical necessity. You know? Like it's not it's about as real as what if the serial killer actually came after me? Like it's about as real as your brain doing that after you watch Silence of the Lambs. You know? It's not a real concern you need to have.
Elective. I asked elective, to be clear.
Yeah, basically a lot. What we're finding out with Trump and like Trump appointees and like the threat to our current system is that a lot of our government was based upon the idea that people would engage with the governmental systems in good faith and with an aim to like better the lives of their fellow citizens. And what we're finding out is that gentlemen's agreements do not actually like apply after you go 300 or 400 years into the history of a country, and like it's become more of like a corporatized power game, you know? The gentlemen's agreements are gone.
Elective.
Meaning no reason given, no medical issues, just a woman saying, you know what,
I've carried this baby for 8.5 months and I've changed my mind.
Well, it's a little crass way of putting it. I think some women are going through some serious crises in their lives, and they may make a decision that's a bit more than just they've changed their mind. Like, for instance, where a woman is being battered by her husband, and then she realizes at month 6 that if she has this kid, he's going to continue to beat and harm the child, and she can't stay with him or something.
Well, I think, I'm not going to assess people's reasons for having an abortion. It's not really my business. But I think that having restrictions ends up costing
like Sam's just like, that's not my lane, though.
Women's lives. And so I would, on balance, not have restrictions outside of like, obviously, like, particularly as you get further into the pregnancy, requirements about medical, certified medical providers.
So let's say you have a scenario, a woman goes to a Planned Parenthood, 6 months pregnant, and she just says, I don't want to explain it. I just would like to get an abortion. Is that she should be allowed? There should be just medical professionals say, we're going to do it. We're not going to ask you why.
I think it's okay to, explore it and get a sense, as you would for any type of like, medical procedure.
What does that mean? Like,
I think that there's an obligation within the context of like ethical practice of medicine to
not just terminate a baby at 6 months without reason.
Well, no, I'm not saying that they should adjudicate this, but I don't think that like necessarily medical providers are going to be just like, hop up here, we'll just do this right now. I mean, I think there are procedures in which they do it, but essentially as long as it's like sort of like, they're following, medical procedures. Like, I don't think that somebody can, walk in here at 6 months and say to you, like, can you get rid of my baby? And you're allowed to do it.
No, but like, I'm just asking, like, should there be a time limit, like 16 weeks?
I think that is, that endangers women too much. So
yeah, like anytime you put a limit on it, you wind up with cases where women die. Like a woman just died. And honestly, barely an adult woman. She was 18 years old, died of sepsis after being denied medical care in a state that doesn't allow her to get an abortion. Like,
The answer is no. I don't.
but the other thing is, like, if a fetus is viable outside the womb and it can be delivered safely, then what the doctor does isn't an abortion, it is just a delivery of the baby. You know?
I don't believe so.
So, but that would create a circumstance, be it as rare as, you know, it may be, but where there's like an 8-month abortion.
It's conceivable. I
But
mean,
that-
certainly in the 8th or 9th month. I mean, here's the thing: in the 8th or 9th month, you can you may find that the child is going to not be viable.
But we're not talking about that. We're talking about elective. Like, I'm
Well,
specifically
but
trying to
here's
ask
the-
about that.
But here's the danger, though. Like, and this is what I'm talking about. Why you have women who have died in Texas, and there's probably a lot more that we're not aware of, is that imposing these restrictions is not like there's no like bulb that shows up when you say this child is 100% not viable, or that your life is 100% not threatened. Like, where's the threshold? Is it at 20%? If the woman's life is in jeopardy, it's 20%. And this is, a vague, a doctor doesn't have like some meter that they put on the, the woman and say, oh, okay, your life is at 20%. No. These are vague determinations. And when you impose these type of restrictions on, what invariably happens is women die, because in real life, not hypothetical world, in real life, the doctors are afraid of crossing a threshold where they could get imprisoned, or they could lose their license, or conceivably the woman might too. And so I leave it up to a doctor and the patient. I don't know what constitutes even elective. Like, is it elective if there's a 20% chance I'm going to die?
No,
That's not elective.
it's not elective.
What about 5%?
That's not elective.
What about 1%?
Not elective.
Okay. We know that
Elective is usually used to describe
0.5%.
I've decided I don't want the baby anymore.
Because we know that, there's always a danger of a woman dying in childbirth. And it's above 0. So we're.
Oh, come on.
No.
We're trying
come
to be
on, come on.
reasonable, right? We
No.
want to solve the problem. We don't want to just say, oh,
What's the problem?
geez. There are conservatives who believe that if the baby is, well, for many, I don't even believe in IVF, because even a fertilized, embryo
Okay,
is
what's
life.
what's the problem? I understand that there are
Problem is
religious
the
people who
distinction
don't
between
like what I
world-
do, but what's the problem?
The death of a baby.
Well, I would contend that we're talking about the death of a fetus, and
So the issue is whether someone determines personhood or not is a legal constitutional question that needs to be answered. For instance, in Civil War era, they didn't think black people were humans who had civil rights, and that's clearly the psychotic way to view the world. But you holding the view that an unborn child is or is not an individual who holds a view, whether they are or not, is an unanswered question at the Supreme Court level that I believe sooner or later will be answered. And they may make a determination that the unborn are persons who are.
what do you think?
Man, that's tough. I tend to be traditionally pro-choice. I think that when you have
Do you think there should be restrictions on abortion?
100%.
What should
Like-
those
like
restrictions
what?
be?
Time limit for sure, but I don't know. I'm not smart enough to give you a certain amount of
But
time.
but here's the problem: is that when in practice, that time limit ends up killing women.
Well, you've got a dying baby or a dying woman, and we're trying to figure out how to save them both.
Well, I mean, one is
But that's the thing. That's the thing, Tim. Sometimes you can't save them both, Tim. Sometimes you can't save them both, Tim. Like, what do you want? Like, if that's not an option. That's like saying, "Doctor, cure my cancer." And he's like, "Well, we can start you on chemo, but we don't have just a straight up cure for cancer." And it's like, "Cure my cancer, doctor." It's like that's not an option. Cure it, doctor. It's just not an option. Tim is just a spineless fuck for money. That's it.
Restrictions
is-
are if the baby can survive, why kill it?
So you're saying viability.
So yeah, viability is huge, and medical technology is rapidly expanding that. But there's still a lot of questions in how we handle it. So my position is that the government can't mandate one person provide their body to another person. However, if a person provides consent in the initial phase, now they have an obligation for a certain time period.
So if you have sex and you get pregnant, you are obligated to carry that baby to term. Is that what you're saying?
I think that I'd be in favor of abortion up to a certain point.
Well, but I don't understand what the logic is there.
Logic is compromise.
Oh, so this is just a question of splitting the baby in half, literally.
Not literally splitting the baby in half. It is, can the government tell someone you must provide your body and blood to another person?
And you say they can
So the
up to a certain point.
The questions of consent play a role in whether you allow someone and then have an obligation to them based on the requirement. So for instance, like rape, I 100% exception. Health of the mother.
The exceptions aren't real. I hope Sam brings up that exceptions aren't real. Like, if you have an exception for rape or incest, do you guys know how long it takes to, like, solve an rape or incest case? Even if you have an allegation, even if you have all of the evidence in a row? Like, nah. It takes longer than 9 months. Sorry. That's not a real exception. If it takes longer than 9 months for you to prove your case to get an abortion exception, then it is not an actual exception.
Okay.
100%
So
exception.
let's take rape.
Yeah. The woman can choose.
Okay. What establishes rape?
When a person does not consent.
Okay. How rape is a criminal term, right?
Yes, indeed.
So you need to go through the court case.
Perhaps.
Well, I mean, perhaps.
Well,
Like, can I come in and say I was raped and that's it? All I need to do is say I was raped.
Nope.
Okay. So you need to have a court case.
No, I didn't say that either.
Oh,
there would have to
God.
be some degree of
Well, you
adjudication.
keep telling me what you're not saying, but why don't you just say what you're saying? How do you
No,
establish?
you got to calm down.
No, well, how do you establish what if rape has taken place or not?
So there's rape kits, right? And we can check for abrasions. And a woman who was raped certainly would want to get a rape kit done, I'd imagine.
Well, okay. First of all,
But if you're
there's-
asking-
we know for a fact
if you're
that a
asking
lot of
for-
hold on, we know for a fact that a lot of women don't seek rape kits for whatever reason.
Yep. Largely because, for a couple of reasons. One, it's incredibly invasive right after an incredibly traumatic experience. And two, because often cops don't do anything about it. Often cops will mock you, belittle you, make you feel worthless or like you deserved it, talk you. In fact, some cops will actively try and talk you out of levying charges against your rapist. It is an awful experience for a lot of victims.
Because
Aren't there warehouses of unprocessed kits? You know, I remember reading about that years ago, that was a problem. Let's just take a quick look. Is that still a problem today? I'm going to guess it is, but let's check. How many untested rape kits United States? Let's see. Okay, as of last year, across 30 states and Washington, D.C., this is USA Facts, found at least 25,000 kits in need of testing. Let's see how many we got at the moment. You know, the amount of untested kits very much ranges. Let's take a look. Here's USA Today from this year. America tested 100,000 forgotten rape kits. Literally, the justice system forgot about 100,000 rape kits. This country does not give a shit about sexual violence. Yeah, with untested rape kits piling up across the country, the Department of Justice wanted action and convictions. Years later, a USA Today investigation finds many of the same problems remain. Cool. On summer nights a year apart, 2 women left bars in downtown Austin, Texas, before they could get home safely. Both were raped. One knew her rapist. He was an acquaintance, she said, who saw she was intoxicated and offered her a ride on the handlebars of his bicycle before sexually assaulting her as she drifted in and out of consciousness. The other did not. She told police she was attacked by strangers who pinned her down and raped her. Neither investigation led to an arrest. Years later, in 2021, Austin police received a significant new lead. DNA found on one woman's jeans matched DNA from a swab of the other woman's neck. It suggested that the two women had been attacked by the same man, a serial rapist. This is the kind of breakthrough officials across the country hope for when they pledge to test sexual assault evidence that had been neglected for years in law enforcement storage rooms. Since 2015, the U.S. Department of Justice has given out nearly $350 million in grants to 90 local and state agencies throughout through the National Sexual Assault Kit Initiative. Officials promised the money would put rapists behind bars and give victims long-awaited answers. Instead, a USA Today investigation found cases hit the same roadblocks they did when victims first came forward: kits left untested, haphazard or cursory reviews by police and prosecutors, and a reluctance to inform people about what had happened to evidence collected from their own bodies. By the Justice Department's count, the program led to 100,000 kits being tested and 1,500 convictions so far, nearly half from 2 agencies, while others have seen meager results. In Charlotte, North Carolina, a backlog of 2,300 kits netted 14 convictions. Mobile, Alabama, 1,100 kits led to 8 convictions. Austin, 4,400 kits, they secured just 1 conviction. After the 2 Austin cases matched through DNA, a detective reviewed the files. Police said they contacted the woman who had reported being raped by a stranger, but she did not want to speak with them, and her investigation was again closed. Officials did not tell her the man linked to her kit could be a serial rapist. Why the fuck would you not tell her that? On the other case, police botched their review and did nothing. Crystal Allison, the woman who had made that report, did not learn that the acquaintance she accused of rape had been linked to another reported sexual assault until USA Today contacted her this summer. That seriously sent chills down my spine. Nobody had reached out to me at all. I know nothing of it. Again, anytime you hear a story about the prevalence of sexual assault, anytime you hear a story about how, every woman knows someone who knows a woman who's been raped, but no man knows a rapist, or very few men know rapists, it's because police and our criminal justice system do not follow up. They do not follow up. And, the terrible thing is we could make the choice to prioritize this, but we don't. I love New York, but this is an area where they fail. New York City cops absolutely fail when it comes to rape. Absolutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. I know people who have been belittled for coming forward to NYPD about being raped, and who have been absolutely and completely traumatized to the point that when they got sexually assaulted again in the future, they didn't even bother because it was so awful the first time. Because the cops actively made the rape worse. Oh yeah, that's the cops that straight up told me to leave when I tried to report a crime? Yep. They'll often try and dissuade rape victims from actually levying charges because it means more work for them. I never even thought about going to the authorities about it. Yeah. Yeah. I got assaulted and the NYPD told me it was a he said, they said. Yeah. You know, and that's the thing. They'll say that even if they have access to like physical evidence, you know? They'll say that even when they have access to hundreds of thousands of pieces of additional evidence. But don't they like getting convictions and get promoted or securing convictions? No. No. When it comes to like sexual assault cases, cops hate those. They hate them because it's difficult to prosecute. It's difficult to gather the evidence. It's difficult to get cooperation from victims, and also like it's difficult all around. And sometimes you can't get the physical evidence of the sexual assault, and so it winds up being a massive headache of paperwork for no actual like conviction that you can hand over to prosecutors. So it winds up being, in their mind, a gigantic waste of time. So when someone throws that on their desk, they want that headache to go away as quickly as possible, even if it means not actually investigating it. And people wonder why victims of sexual assault hesitate to come forward. Exactly, Mr. Anderson, exactly. So, like, again, when Tim is saying, well, let's throw the exceptions over to the police to investigate, I need you all to understand why that's a horrible idea.
They're afraid to. Okay, so if you don't get a rape kit,
we have responsibilities to ourselves and to others, and sometimes those choices are very difficult to make.
So just the existence of a rape kit will establish that rape has happened. Why do we need court cases to establish that rape has happened?
I didn't say we did. I said no.
Okay, so
a medical professional who assesses that a rape has occurred, I believe, is
what if they go in
largely
too many days after to get a rape kit?
And then there's no evidence of a rape taking place?
Yeah.
That would be a restriction.
Okay. So who makes that adjudication?
If a rape took place?
Yeah.
The person administering the rape kit. So
we would put rape kit people who are administering this and look at the evidence. And do you think it's just like completely binary? Do you think like when you get a rape kit, like this person has definitely been raped or this person has definitely not been raped?
I think that we're dealing with something outside of the simplicity of I can go to court, it takes 6 months to a year to figure something out, which means there's a compromise. How can we come to the best determination to make sure that women are not lying, which I assume would be exceedingly rare, and we're actually going after the criminals? I do not think it's fair to put the burden on someone to perform an abortion without actually taking the responsibility of yourself and saying, look, victims have responsibilities, and it's unfortunate that they're victims, but we're trying our best.
So if you don't go, so let's say, for instance, like, I mean, I don't know if you've ever, and spent any time exploring the psychological and the sort of like social pressures on people to report rape. I mean, but you're basically saying that if you don't go and get a rape kit, it's contingent upon the police department to assess this rape kit. If you go too late,
is that who's administering the rape kit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a doctor.
No, I mean,
no. Like that's the horrible that's one of the horrible things, right? Like a doctor doesn't administer this. It's a cop. A cop comes in and does the rape kit. Like a cop comes in and probes your genitals. Like, and it's invasive too. Like it's not. Yeah, you're lucky if you get a nurse.
They may have medical things.
I was talking about a doctor. She goes to the doctor. She says, I've been raped.
Like Tim has given this so little thought. He doesn't even know. You know?
They do a kit and they say, okay. And then she says, I would not want to have a pregnancy from this.
Now,
say,
do you honestly, like, do you know how this works? It's not like it's preponderance of the evidence.
I'm so glad that Sam can keep his cool through this. 'Cause like, I'd be losing it. I'd be so angry.
And it's like, so you're basically saying the doctor gets to decide.
I am. You don't think doctors should be able to decide to give a woman an abortion?
No, I think doctors can decide. Well, I think doctors are responsible for.
This is a compromise. I'm pro-choice, but I recognize that we're not going to live in a society where one side's demanding an extreme, the other side's demanding the other. So
you
extreme.
think the rule should be if you get a
doctor makes
rape case? What if it's somebody?
We're
who's
talking
like,
about edge cases. I
if
mean, I
it's
don't know why you're
15
getting so much into the edge cases.
It's not an edge case. Like, how often? No, honestly, Tim probably thinks that rape is rare. Okay.
Well, I mean,
how often does this even happen?
How often do people go in and get an abortion at 8.5 months because they feel like it?
That's my point.
Yeah, very, very few.
Right. So why are you bringing it up?
Well, because of the people who you would create.
You are the one who brought it up, Tim.
Restrictions are going to cause
exceedingly rare and not even an issue.
So then why would we have any restrictions whatsoever?
Because what do you mean? So that babies at 8 months don't have their lives ended?
Well, I mean, what if there are reasons for it?
That's then requiring adjudication. But it's so exceedingly rare. You're arguing an edge case for a dramatic change in policy.
But
I'm not. I'm
it's
saying
not a dramatic change in policy. There are, I think, like
it's kind of wild that I'm like, women should be able to get abortions, but you're like, yes, but in these exceedingly rare circumstances, we should remove all restrictions because sometimes.
Excuse me. I think there's 10 states at least. I know you can look this up where there are no restrictions.
I agree. Yeah.
So it's not. This is not some type of like radical change of policy. It exists.
No, this is recent. After the end of Roe v. Wade, these are the restrictions that these changes started happening across the board.
I mean, I can understand that.
Do you agree with those states removing restrictions?
Like I say, yes, because I think
that's not Roe v. Wade. That's the end of Roe v.
Oh, I said at least go back to Roe v. Wade.
Didn't Roe v. Wade have a provision on viability? It was an additional case that people don't bring up. That was in the 90s.
The Casey.
Is that what it was? There was a question about viability and whether or not you can end the life.
The court said in Casey it just changed the date in which, I should say the week in which states could then begin to impose restrictions on that right to get an abortion.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think these type of restrictions end up killing
the overturning of Roe and Casey resulted in states removing restrictions.
Correct.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry. Say that again.
What?
The overturning of Roe v. Wade created the legal precedents by which states could begin to remove restrictions.
No. They could. I think they could have done that prior to that.
Yeah.
I think they could have done that prior to that.
Roe v. Wade just established like a baseline.
So the question ultimately is, I'm not going to come down as the supreme judge and just say like it must be. The right is wrong.
The right is wrong. It's not an enlightened position to just insist on being a dipshit. That's not actually an enlightened and good position to be in.
I say, and I've told Republicans this, if I was a woman that got raped and you told me I had to have a baby, I'd blow my brains out. Like, there is no fucking way you will tell me that I'm going to, by force, without my consent, give my body to somebody else.
You are telling that that woman who got raped.
There is some degree of responsibility.
You have to announce this. You need to follow certain procedures as a victim of a crime. And if you don't, we're going to force you to carry that child to term.
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
They're
fucking monstrous. Like when the fact that Sam can maintain composure here is such a testament to his ability, because I couldn't. But that's monstrous. That's monstrous.
There is a responsibility we have as victims of crimes as well. And one of the problems we have in this country is that...
That's an interesting theory.
Well, it's true. Right? If you're a victim and you want accountability and justice, you have to go to court.
What if you make the determination that I don't want to go through what is involved with getting accountability and justice, but I also don't want to carry my rapist child? In that scenario, the woman is out of luck, according to you.
If you are not willing to take your responsibilities,
the responsibilities that the rapist has imposed upon you.
Indeed, yes.
Okay, so this is what do you call this? The Rapist in Power Act?
I suppose you'd say that liberals have a view that they have no responsibilities at all. that there is no
I don't
requirement.
feel like I have a responsibility. I certainly don't feel that if I was
you're not
someone
making
who
an
could be, I am making an
Well,
argument.
the Rapist Responsibility Act is an emotional nonsense.
No, it isn't. It's
We're
exactly.
talking.
It's exactly what you're advocating for. You are the one, Tim. You're the one who's saying that a rape victim has a responsibility to the rapist. Like that's what you're arguing for here, Tim. You're saying that if someone gets raped, they have a duty to their rapist that did not previously exist.
Talking
It
about a
is-
person's responsibility to
No,
society.
that is exactly what you're
no,
suggesting.
it's drama
is tantamount.
nonsense.
No, it's not drama
it's
nonsense.
prop clipping.
No, it is not.
Yes, you are. Come on,
Dude,
You're not
I
making
don't
an
give
argument.
a shit about
Make an argument. Don't say nonsense
the
words
argument
like rape.
is that what you are suggesting
Is
is that a woman who is raped has a responsibility that has been bestowed upon them by the rapist. The rape.
Yeah, no. Okay. Sam is actually starting to lose his shit here, and you know what? I'm finding it a bit cathartic here.
Rapist has chosen you.
This is a.
If I shoot you in the face, I
calm
have
down.
caused you I have imparted upon you a responsibility. What you're talking about is fascistic. It is.
Sam, do you think
disgusting.
that if someone commits a crime against you,
And so I'm sorry I said Rape Empowerment Act and tried to do it in a more satirical way.
He did try and distance himself by like embracing a more comedic way of phrasing this, but like you can only like build a bit of distance here. Like Tim is saying that if his wife was raped by a man, she has a duty to that rapist. That's what he's saying. And maybe you need to put it in those terms to make it real to someone like Tim. Like maybe he can't recognize how like the depths of the depravity of his position here. There isn't that much more. We're almost through it. But maybe he can only recognize it if it's real to him, you know? Like, God forbid Tim Pool has a daughter. Imagine growing up and your dad is Tim Pool and you can watch this episode. Vomit inducing.
What you're talking
your
about
logic
is
centers are
disgusting.
shutting down.
And listen, no.
You're getting
No.
overly emotional.
No, I'm not.
You are not speaking logically anymore.
No. What you're
Sam would be completely justified, by the way, in leaping over this table and like throttling Tim.
A
doing
victim
is
of a crime. When a
you are
person is a
doing what you
victim of a
always
crime,
do.
they have
You're
to file
trying
paperwork to
pretend
get
like
accountability.
you can find something in here, but
You're
it
not
is
talking about the argument
absolutely
anymore.
Nonsense. Yes, it is.
You are no longer
I've now-
talking about the issue
because
nor the law.
everybody sees. Oh, I am
You are getting
definitely
overly
talking about it.
emotional.
I don't.
You're talking about my person. You're doing ad hominems.
no.
You've lost it.
No. Here's
Sam,
the point.
let's start with the
You're
law.
so full of crap.
You see,
it's
here you go.
amazing.
You can't even make an argument anymore, can you?
I don't need to because
You don't need
everybody
to make
who's watched this.
arguments.
No. Everybody who's watched this knows
He's
that
watching you have an emotional
you're
breakdown on
saying
camera.
that a rape victim has a responsibility that has been bestowed upon them by the rapist. It's gross. It's disgusting.
You are.
Yeah, literally everyone can see this. And honestly, Tim probably was fishing for this as a way to kind of like regain power that he felt he lost throughout the rest of the conversation. He probably was deliberately fishing for this kind of emotional reaction. And in order to seem like the enlightened centrist, he's like dissociating from any kind of emotional response that he might have to Sam in order to seem like he's above getting emotional in an argument. When, like, in reality, we saw him express so much more emotion about being called out on his shit with Tenet Media. And now he's trying to be like, yes, but you see, I have the sage-like wisdom to not get upset when I say that women have a responsibility to their rapist if they are raped. You see, I am not having an emotional reaction here because I am simply above emotional reactions. I am a being of pure logic, and therefore I am correct on this assessment. That is the like message he's trying to project to his audience right now. I'm actually kind of curious. Show chat replay. I want to see, is there a way we can see the chat on here? We're at 2 hours, 39 minutes in here. Let's.
You've lost it.
No.
Can we see the chat replay? Oh, man. No chat replay.
Oh, no. Here's
Sam,
the point.
let's start with the
You're
law.
so full of crap.
You see,
it's
here you go.
amazing.
You can't even make an argument anymore, can you?
I don't need to, because
You don't need to
everybody who
make
has watched this,
arguments.
no. Everybody who has watched this knows
Is
that
watching
you're,
you have an emotional
you're
breakdown on
saying
camera.
that a
I wonder, look, I don't know if they purged the chat because that's just how YouTube works, or if chat will load if you let it play for a bit.
rape victim has a response.
Aha! Good looking out. All right. Man, Tim really cultivated an audience here. Okay, there are some people in chat here. Like, Tim's doing that ridiculous conservative, you're getting emotional thing when he's losing. Tim, the gaslighting pool. But the other people are just absolute ghouls, being like, "Oh, Sam's crying. Like, oh, look at how emotional he is. Oh, look at him." And it's like, you don't think people should be emotional over the subject of rape? You don't think it's not you think it's not a topic that people should be emotional about? Like, the ultimate violation of their personhood isn't something to be emotional about? Like, you think like the women in your life being violated isn't something to get upset about? And then someone comes along and tells you that you have a duty to the person who violated you? That's not worth getting upset about? I mean, it's very 4chan, you know? It's very, I made you feel feelings, so that means I win. Honestly, it's an excellent indicator of the kind of community that he's formed. And honestly, if I ever create a community even remotely like that, I think I'm just gonna shut the entire thing down. You know, at that point, I just burn every thing related to that community to the ground. Like, if I ever created a community where it was acceptable for you guys to talk this way, yeah, we nuke it from orbit. Yeah, we cover the riverboat in gasoline and walk away into the night. Like, this is not acceptable. Tossing a match behind us for dramatic effect. You space laser that shit? Exactly. Cuz I wouldn't do that to me, and I would never want to do that to any of you. Not a single one of you.
Responsibility that has been bestowed upon them by the rapist. It's gross. It's disgusting.
You are having an emotional breakdown right now.
I'm not having an emotional breakdown right now.
Do you think the police
I'm getting
should be... Oh, you want to wait?
Because I'm thinking of my daughter.
Here we
and
go.
I'm thinking of my daughter.
Here it is.
Do you fucking hear that? No wonder Tim Pool has to live in a compound, bro. You know, if I was walking around antagonizing people by making them think about their daughter being raped, I guess I'd have to live in an armed compound too. Tim Pool is relishing the fact that he made Sam Seder think about his daughter being raped. And the horrifying aspect of this is that Tim opened this show talking about how he's going to be taking time off to be a good dad to his coming child. God forbid that child be a girl, or ever, you know, even if they're not a girl, ever the victim of rape. God forbid if that happens to that child, like they stumble across this particular VOD where Tim Pool laughs at a man who's talking about if his daughter got raped. Well, Mr. Miyagi, best case scenario for that child is for Tim Pool to marry that woman, and then that woman divorce the shit out of him and take half his stuff. Best scenario for that child. Get full custody. Honestly, in order to get full custody, all you'd really have to show the judge are these VODs. Honestly. All you'd have to do is show, like, Tim Pool's body of work. And that woman gets all of Tim Pool's stuff and 100% custody.
And I'm thinking of the idea that a
Sam.
rapist could force her to do something
Sam,
that
you're spiraling.
No,
You're
I'm not
spiraling.
No.
Look at him. Fuck this asshole.
Spiraling.
Tim,
You're not
you're
even
afraid
stopping talking.
because you just
You're not even
found
stopping
out
talking.
You never
You're gonna,
think
you're gonna,
out
you're gonna,
anything
you're gonna,
that you
we're
say,
gonna say something.
and
We're
you're
gonna
upset
talk, or are you gonna
that
keep just talking about
faced
nonsense?
you in front of all of your
Are you gonna
audience.
wait for your prop
The
clipping?
Rapist
You're prop clipping,
Empowerment
Sam.
Act.
You're prop clipping.
I don't even know what that means.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do. You're
What does
prop
it
clipping
mean?
again.
What is prop
You're
clipping?
not arguing abortion anymore.
What is prop clipping?
You said, Tim, you're full of crap. You're not arguing abortion anymore.
Because
you disgust me. Oh, rape, blah, blah. You stopped
you're
arguing.
saying
You
that
stopped
a rapist,
arguing and you started doing performative garbage for the camera.
No, I'm
You
not
want to
doing
have
performative
you want to have a
garbage.
discussion, Sam?
Dude, the best part of
do
this
you want to have a discussion,
was
or are you going to keep
tying
talking?
you in knots about
You
the
wanna have a
idea
discussion?
that a rapist can force a woman.
Here you go again.
to go in-
Here you go again. You're making things up.
I'm reiterating.
You're prop clipping.
I am reiterating.
You're prop clipping.
I am
Sam,
reiterating your
You're
position.
getting overly
to me.
emotional. You're getting heated. You're finger pointing. You're throwing slurs and name calling.
You're throwing slurs? Tim, what slurs did he use? What slurs did your feelings get hurt by there? What slurs were you able to identify?
You're
What's
full
the slur?
Well, I forgive me. You're so full of crap. You disgust me. Blah. This is not an
honestly,
argument. You want to have a
I gotta
discussion?
be honest with you.
You want to have a discussion, or you're gonna have an emotional breakdown?
You know what? I am going to continue with the so-called emotional breakdown because honestly, I think
That's right, Sam.
no. I honestly.
Let's solve our problems by Sam
I
just
honestly-
freaking out and having emotional breakdowns on camera.
I honestly think that like
Come
what
on,
you
Sam.
do is so damaging.
Oh no!
And this
Here he goes.
whole notion that
You
you,
broke.
would allow
It took 2 hours
for
and 40
race-
minutes for you to break.
Yeah,
You
this
broke.
whole
Sam,
Why are you,
You
keeping
broke.
me from talking?
because you haven't
If
let
you
me talk
think
one
I'm-
time.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Victims of crimes who want accountability have responsibilities.
What if they don't want accountability? What if they don't want to put themselves on the stand and have to point
they
out
don't get
that
accountability.
guy? Okay, but they have to carry the baby, right? According to you,
If they don't want accountability, then this is a
then they have to
reality.
carry the baby.
This is reality.
Say it.
A woman.
Say it. if they
I will
don't
say it as
want
plainly as
accountability,
I can say
they
it
have to
100%.
carry that rapist baby.
If a woman does not want accountability for her rape, she will carry that baby.
She has to.
She has to, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, up to 15 weeks.
That's the prop clip I want right
up
there.
to 15 weeks.
I mean, I think we have come to an agreement.
That women can get abortions if they're so choosing without any restrictions up to a certain amount of time. And then after viability would have to.
They don't want to pursue their rapists in public, in a public setting, and they don't want to go through that.
You literally just said that, Tim. You all heard that, right? You all heard that, right? Tim Pool said that unless a woman who has been raped faces their rapist in a court of law and is able to prove it, that...
This is why we picked the bear.
Yeah, exactly, Fenry. No shit. Again, guys, if you've gotten this far and you happen to be conservative of any sort, or like happen to be a young man, presumably young man, who doesn't understand the man versus bear thing and why women choose the bear over running. If you don't know what man versus bear, it's if a woman is walking alone in the woods and would you rather encounter a bear or encounter a man? This is why women choose the bear. Because you can't trust men like Tim Pool. You can't trust someone like that. And
Sam, you're having an emotional breakdown.
okay, just to be clear here. Tim Pool said that unless you face your accuser, or not your accuser, your rapist in court, it is incumbent upon you as a woman to carry your rapist's baby to term. If you are raped, he's graciously granting you some time, 15 weeks or whatever, in order to get that abortion. He again, as he's backed himself into more and more monstrous positions, he's been like, but you have a 15-week grace period. But otherwise, no, he's saying you have the obligation as a rape victim to carry the baby to term.
You've stopped listening to what's being said. You started getting angry, insulting. You're disgusting. How dare you? This is, and you know
you
what?
don't think
and
saying
Sam,
to
let
me
me tell
that
you,
you're prop clipping. I don't know what that means, but
so it's when you stopped arguing abortion, finger pointing and waving your hands and saying, I tied you in knots in front of the camera.
Yes.
And this is why people don't invite you on their show.
I don't give a shit.
I know.
I'll tell you something.
That's why you don't get invited on shows, because
I
you don't care.
care.
I know you don't care. I'm not saying
I don't care. I honestly, like, this is...
You start the show, like, I don't want to talk politics. I want to talk about how you said mean things about me before.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to get that. Oh, wait.
Yeah,
no,
your
not mean
WWE
things.
politics.
No. Listen.
We're talking about how do we effectively have law on abortion. That should be a woman can do whatever she wants.
Hey, we had effective law on abortion. We had effective law on abortion for like 50 goddamn years. We conservatives ripped that law apart. We could just go back to that law.
To 15, 16 weeks, maybe even 22. I don't know what the time limit is. But if the baby is viable, there has to be accountability.
None of what you're saying is meaningful at all.
That there should be a time restriction on
15, 22, you're just throwing around numbers.
Because there's a debate on how long that duration should be. But my position is that pre-viability, I don't know, some say 22, some say 26.
And my addressing you is that the
Getting
restrictions that
angry
you're pushing...
and you're disgusting and emotional breakdown.
Yeah. My emotional breakdown to you is that when you put these restrictions on women, they in practice are impossible to actually execute.
There we go. See, this is what, throughout this entire segment of the conversation, this is what
I'm all for the high ground, but can we form a hate group to discriminate against Tim Pool specifically?
Soul Black Guy, you are prohibited from forming hate groups. I'm sorry. But, you know, I maybe could condone something more lighthearted, like the Tim Pool Noogie Club, or the Tim Pool Wedgie Society, something like that. Not a hate group. It's all just in good fun. I think the Tim Pool Wedgie Society has a nice ring to it. But one thing I will say here is that I think that a lot of this could have been avoided if Sam had opened up from the start. And I think he was trying to do it in a gentle way that Tim maybe like circumvented here by being a complete and total ghoul. But we should have opened up with the fact that like these are not viable exceptions. Exceptions are not actually practicable. They do not actually go in and help women in extenuating circumstances get abortions. They don't work. The Tim Pool Dirty Swirly Club? Well, it's only a dirty swirly if it's in his own house, apparently.
Execute. And you have shown that by saying that if a woman refuses to go in front of a court,
I never said that. This is what I said, Sam. For the love
if
of
it
all that
doesn't
is
take
holy.
I mean, unfortunately for Tim Pool, like, there is a camera, and they made the mistake of filming this live, so we could all see exactly what he said.
accountability, what does
Sam,
accountability mean?
A rape kit.
Okay, so if a
That is going to the police. If you are getting a rape kit, you are levying rape charges. Like, which means you are, you know, you need to prove your rape in a court of law. That's what that means. You can't just go get a rape kit and then have nothing to do with the investigation after that.
rape kit,
You're saying I was raped with no proof and no evidence, and therefore I
they've
should
got
have
to
to
go
terminate
in.
a 6-month
They've
baby.
got to go in within 24 to 36 hours and say to a doctor, "I was raped." And if they don't do that, then they're forced to carry the rapist baby.
Depending on what you want to happen in society, there are things you have to do. Sometimes you may not want to have to do them, but this idea you have that
Or, I'm just throwing this out there, women could just be allowed to get abortions. You know, like that's the alternative. What's the alternative here? Women can get abortions without restriction.
people, what you're proposing is that the state should be able to enforce crimes against people without evidence.
What?
What is that? What are you talking about? That didn't even make sense as a sentence.
You want accountability, but you do not want
I
to go
don't
through
want
the...
accountability. I just don't want this woman to have to carry a rapist baby.
Right, so this is very 5th grade.
No. What Tim is about to do is supremely stupid, right?
I don't want this woman to have to carry a rapist baby.
Tim is about to be extraordinarily pedantic in an effort to get under Sam's skin. And Tim is about to say, well, you can only know if she's carrying a rapist's baby if you can prove the rape happened. That's what Tim is about to do. It's going to be infuriating.
Right, so this is very 5th grade, right? There is a legal system that exists. We have to work within a legal system because we have compromises and a social contract with other people. The idea that I can take action against another person without proper adjudication is fascistic. What we have to do is figure out what are the terms for each individual circumstance.
Who's the other person you're talking about?
So we're the baby
Oh, so you
at 6 months.
You consider a baby a person at 6 months. Let me ask
Viability.
you this: if
Well, I consider a baby a person the whole time.
a
but I-
fetus, a person, the whole
life
time.
begins at conception, but the state doesn't.
Life
have,
begins at conception.
but yeah,
Wait, what? What? Dude, if that is your position, if your position is that a human life begins at conception, then you arguing that like there's a 15-week, 22-week, whatever position here where like abortion's okay, but then after that it's not okay, and also maybe you can take the morning after, maybe you can use like a Nuva ring, whatever. Doesn't make any sense. If he believes that, I honestly, the vibe I'm getting here is that Tim is so thoroughly rattled by Sam that he has no idea what he's talking about. He's lost the plot on his abortion position.
Yes, but the state doesn't
You
have
believe that in the context of
but
immigration?
the state doesn't have the authority to tell a person when they must give their body to another person. There's arguments over consent, in which case rape is an exception. However, I'm pro-choice.
Okay.
That makes no fucking sense. That makes no fucking sense whatsoever. You cannot reconcile those positions. You simply cannot. Also, just as an FYI, the average rape investigation, not rape trial, rape investigation, takes anywhere from several weeks to over a year. And if you are talking about needing to prove this in a court of law, that means it might take anywhere from, well, a few weeks for a trial to then begin to start, or an entire year for a trial to begin to start. Which means it is not a viable exception to have to prove this in court.
So what we're talking about now, because, make sure you include this in the context, and I'm glad you're here, I can say it to you, is a woman up to pre-viability, in my opinion, should be allowed to get an abortion if she so chooses because of the impossibility of properly adjudicating anything in between. I think that's where, when I say you're having a breakdown, it's because I don't think you're listening to what I'm saying. After viability, we're talking about extenuating circumstances where a baby that could survive on its own. There's now an issue there where the question becomes, why kill the baby? If we're
They don't kill the baby if it's viable, Tim. If it's viable outside the womb, doctors don't kill the baby. They just do a C-section.
talking about a period where we're not sure the baby's viable or not. We're wondering why the woman carried the baby this long. The issue is not so black and white for you to just say.
Well, you're saying this is about viability, not time limit.
Yeah, I'm.
You keep vacillating back and forth. I mean, maybe you don't realize this, but there's completely.
If you can't understand, I'll explain it to you.
Inconsistent with it.
What
you're saying.
week is viability?
What week is viability?
Yes,
I mean, I think there's some debate about that.
Agreed. My point is, I don't know the point at which we as a society will determine it's going to be 16 or 22 or 26. I'm not a scientist or a medical doctor. I agree. There's an issue where if the baby can survive on its own, there's no reason to kill it.
Well, I mean, would you be in favor of a woman getting a C-section in 4 or 5 months just because she doesn't want to carry the baby anymore?
If the baby can survive on its own, my position is typically the woman can make that choice, as long as the baby's not being killed. But, so you know how they perform abortions after that point?
How they perform abortions after what?
Like there's varying degrees of how abortions are performed. So
yes.
the question I have is this. Let me put it this way.
Like dilation and extraction? Are you talking about in terms of
my position largely is we've got two real distinct worldviews on this one that are extreme ends. They neither agrees with each other, and I'm trying to navigate in between to get people to be like, look, there's got to be some standard.
Dude, these are the ideas behind anti-abortion are primarily religious fundamentalism, and it is about maintaining a gender hierarchy. And the idea that you can negotiate, you're basically taking Hillary Clinton's position from 2004.
Probably.
And it is...
that's not a good look to your audience, Tim. Like, being able to be like, ah, yes, I adopted this from Hillary Clinton. Yeah, no, Tim doesn't have a position. But Brianna Huffman, you have to understand, Sam can't just say, Tim, you have no position, because he'll say, I have a position. And then he'll say what that position is. And then 5 seconds later, he'll have a different one. What Sam needs to do here is clearly demonstrate that he has no position.
It doesn't work that way. The fundamentalists who are pushing this ideology, and it's largely fundamentalists, and if not directly, certainly downstream from a religious fundamentalism, they're not interested in your compromise. It is, and the proof of it is
not interested in yours.
I'm not compromising. The
And
proof
neither
of
are
it
they.
is after
That's the point.
50 years, there was a compromise. It was Casey. Exactly what you're talking about, which is why when you asked me at the beginning, I said, at the very least, go back to Roe v. Wade and maintain those protections. But that equilibrium was not enough for the right-wing Republican Party. And so, therefore, that's where we're at now. That's the end of story.
And now we
There
have
was
states with
there
no
was-
restrictions, and we have states with absolute restrictions.
There was a compromise, and the right wing in this country did not want it.
I mean, again, if Sam gets too hard, he gets kicked off the show. Like, I mean, fundamentally, like, Tim's goal here is to goad Sam into going harder on him and losing control. Like, that is his goal.
That's it.
The
That's
left-
why this is a
and
this
this
is
is-
why a debate, and you have an individual right that has cost the lives of multiple women across the country. It is increased infant mortality, like I said, at least in Texas by 15%, and it's I think it also, and I think it's much harder to measure this, but it subjugates women.
That would make him look like a weak-willed little bitch boy? No, it wouldn't. They would simply write off Sam's position as being hysterical. Like, you can, like, I looked briefly at the live chat, that it's what they were already doing. They would just do it even more.
In this country, because it basically says you have less rights to have bodily autonomy, and that's just the beginning.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Yeah, if as I stated, if I was a woman and I was raped and I was forced to carry the baby, I'd blow my brains out. And so that's
Yeah, but you're setting up a framework that forces rape victims to do that. Like, this is, again, like, you're the one creating this hypothetical framework, by the way, that is entirely your own, that makes women do that.
That's why I say up to a certain point, I'm pro-choice. I mean, up to a certain time period, because I agree, after the baby can live on its own, I don't understand why you kill it.
If there was a way to have the type of restrictions you're talking and have a child be viable, outside of the womb and all of this, but in reality, that's not the way it works. These things don't work the way that you're talking about. The rape exceptions,
And you're gonna to be fair, this issue is the razor's edge. There's no middle. It's one side or the other.
Man, that must be really inconvenient for you, Tim, sitting on a razor. I hear those edges are sharp. Must be clefting your ass in twain.
has to be in the way that it is in practice, and frankly, but these are religious fundamentalists, and they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop with abortion. They will come for IVF. Of course they will.
I would also make the argument that I don't think the left will stop with their ideology either. Both are going to...
I think...
What ideology are you talking... Tim, are you saying that the left is going to start saying that you can abort 35-year-old men? Because honestly, I'm getting close to being radicalized to that position. I'm not there yet. But you are directly responsible for me being radicalized to exactly that position. But you know what? Maybe we should just have an exception specifically for 35-year-old men who can't stop wearing beanies. Extraordinarily late term abortion, we'll call it. That's the extreme position he believes the left wants. That's what they were imposing in the Wendy's autonomous zone.
I mean, listen, you started this by saying Obama didn't even in case Roe v. Wade in statute. I mean, the left.
My issue with that was Democrats and Republicans both will argue they're for something, but then use it as a wedge issue.
The left was essentially as a political matter.
Damn, Tim is 38. Okay, I could be convinced to go a few years older on the extraordinary late term abortion policy.
Was fine with Roe v. Wade and Casey, for that matter. I mean, to the extent that there was any talk about abortion rights amongst Democrats and the left, it was to lock it in because the right is coming for this right. And they have now done it. So I mean, the false equivalency you're making here is literally that.
What
false
equivalency?
Well, the idea that the left is pushing this agenda beyond. No, what's happening is
I'm talking about the general.
There was a compromise.
The right's got their agenda items, the left has their agenda items.
I guess
they're both pushing them endlessly.
Well, I mean, everybody.
Yes, you are describing what an agenda is. Good job. You understand what agendas are for political parties. Good job, Tim. Astute political analysis there.
These are political animals, and they want, they have their program.
Wait, so which is me agreeing with you. You say Republicans won't stop, and I say I agree on the issues the left cares about.
Yeah, but you said you could just say I agree with that. You don't have to try and sound smart by just describing what political groups are built to do.
They won't stop either.
Which is to pursue agendas.
Well, that's true. And I think, people make a determination whether they want a religious fundamentalist party to dictate their lives or not.
Or an ideological fundamentalist party.
Well, no, the fundamentalism is an ideology as well. It just happens to be born in religion and religious fundamentalism.
The Wendy's autonomous zone encourages you to dip your fries in your Frosty, but only if you want to.
True.
Last question, because we've gone way over. I do appreciate you hanging out. Why do you think it is so many former liberals are now leaving the left?
Oh, boy.
I mean, people switch parties and ideologies.
Not having the other way around.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well,
where's a big right-wing pundit who joined a liberal network, like Anna Kasparian announcing she's leaving the left? You know what I mean? Or Dave Rubin.
I mean, listen, if you want to say that these are like the intellectual pillars of...
No, certainly not. I'm saying something's causing an emotional rift that makes people not want to be on the left anymore.
Well, I would suggest it's probably cash. I mean,
you think
like
Anna
you said,
Kasparian wanted money?
She said as much, as far as I know, in the past on TYT.
She said she would make more money by being not leftist?
I don't know if she said that. But I know that on her show on TYT she has complained about not making money. I don't know why she's
still on TYT. Like, aren't they going to lose members who are progressives?
I got to be honest with
you. They already have been.
I don't really pay that much attention to like showbiz.
Well, so outside of her, why are there so many people? Like, you had the meme from Colin Wright where it shows the left going all the way to the far left and liberals being like, "What's happening?"
I don't know who Colin Wright is.
I don't either. I gotta be completely honest with you guys. I also don't pay that much attention to other shows, and I don't know who Tim is referencing here.
Sure. There's many prominent personalities who used to be liberals and now identify as moderates or disaffected liberals or post-liberal.
Like you're saying, like a substantial...
There is a huge financial motivation for liberal pundits to go right. There is not a huge mountain of cash waiting for conservatives pundits to shift left. Sorry, that's just not how it works. The backers who, build these media networks are extraordinarily wealthy conservatives for the most part. And if you're looking for liberal commentators, there are always up-and-coming idealists on the left that are willing to work for less money. And on the right, there is a premium to be paid for liberals that will sane wash insane conservative policy. Like that's fundamentally the dynamic at play here.
Financial amount to like sway an election, or what
Elon
do you?
Musk, Mark Zuckerberg.
These are billionaires, dude. They're not leftists. Are you kidding me?
I'm not going to call them
Why
progressives.
are billionaires becoming conservatives?
I didn't say they're becoming conservatives.
Why are billionaires?
Who are previously supporting Democrat politicians now aligning with.
Well, I would say, I mean, when you're talking about Zuckerberg or Elon Musk,
I'm sorry. I didn't say that.
why are billionaires?
I'm not going to call them
Why
progressives.
are billionaires becoming conservatives?
I didn't say they're becoming conservatives.
I didn't say they're becoming conservatives. They're just aligning with Republican politicians. Yeah, conservatives. Those are conservatives, bro. Republican politicians are conservatives.
Australia is poor country. Much money to sponsor dingoes and drop bears. We can only afford to fund so many personalities for our agenda.
Salmon Moose, thank you for the 5 gifted tier 1 subs. I very, very, very much appreciate it. Thank you so goddamn much. And folks, thank you for supporting stream tonight. I very much appreciate it. This has been rough as hell. In an extreme way. I didn't think that this was going to be as rough as it was. And it was really fun for like 2.5 hours, and then it got really not fun.
Why are billionaires?
Who are previously supporting Democrat politicians now aligning with.
Well, I would say, I mean, when you're talking about Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, I would say Lena Khan, head of the FTC. I would say John Cantor at the DOJ antitrust.
Why? So
I think
I
money.
agree with you
money,
absolutely.
money is
I think
threatened to buy any type of sort of liberal stuff.
but why did they support Democrats before?
Why did they?
Yeah.
Because Democrats were all about investing in Silicon Valley startups. Democrats are like what helped fund their companies before they got obscenely bloated and colossal. Democrats supported those startups, seeing possible potential, but now that they've become extraordinarily successful billionaires with companies that span the entire globe, they're looking for massive tax cuts and like monopolistic status and like company towns. Things that they can get by courting right-wing politicians. It's very simple.
Well, because I think the Democrats went through a period of neoliberalism, and Joe Biden, frankly, ended that. There's a ton of never-Trumpers in the Republican Party.
I agree.
I don't necessarily want them to influence our policy.
I'll completely agree with you on the.
I disagree with your assessment. You're just looking at
No, you're
Dave
completely
Rubin
right
and Anna
about
Kasparian
Zuckerberg.
as some type of measure of stuff.
But you've got people like Eric Weinstein, for instance, who says the craziness primarily coming from the left. Well, you can laugh at them all you want, but I'm curious.
I do laugh at him. I think he's ridiculous. This guy works for Peter. The guy who works for Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
The CEFO of Peter Thiel's. Like
okay, Brett Weinstein,
the
evolutionary biologist.
The
evolutionary biologist. Why?
The guy who was mad about pronouns.
That's not him. No, that's Jordan Peterson.
Oh, I get confused on which.
Brett Weinstein was the professor who got ousted from a university over, I think it was a racial disparity.
Oh, he's the anti-vaxxer guy.
No.
Yeah. He's the COVID pandemic, the one who's with his wife. He does a show, right?
Well, I don't know if that's.
Oh yeah.
I'm speaking specifically.
Oh, I've seen this guy. He's completely insane.
Sure. So what do you think happens for him specifically, going back to when he was a university in Pacific Northwest? Or
you want me to make some type of generalization about one guy who's now?
No, I've named several, and I keep
one guy who I just tangentially know, can barely identify in a lineup, and don't pay attention to. Awesome. Good job, Tim.
Naming them, but it's like I just don't.
You've named 5 YouTubers.
That. Nick Christopherson. What's his name? Nick Christakis.
I don't know who
the
that is.
fuck is that guy?
Look, man.
You're naming 5 people to me and attributing it to some like mass.
Why do you think there is a trope that people are leaving the left? Why did C-SPAN have a segment where people called in saying they're quitting the Democrats?
He already said no. He already said he doesn't pay attention. He thinks it's money, and that's been the same answer. I'm so glad Sam is bringing it home for us here. This is great.
Democratic Party, the left has gone nuts.
I don't know, Tim. Why did you accept a suspiciously large offer to do Russian propaganda? Why did you accept a suspiciously large check to make Russian propaganda, Tim? Why'd you do that? What could have possibly motivated you to do that, Tim? Oh, right, money. It was money. Money. Yeah, that thing that you can use to buy goods and services.
There are clicks. Are you asking me? Do I think
C-SPAN?
that there is a? Are you asking me? Do I think that there is a movement?
You can just
away?
say money. I mean, I was fine with that answer.
Well, I'm not even sure I understand. I mean, I can say in those specific instances, but I'm not even sure that that's a phenomenon, to be honest with you.
So
I think this country has moved to the left significantly. I can tell you, like even at Occupy, there was no ideological sort of cohesion in Occupy. I think relative, like the idea that Bernie Sanders could be a senator. I interviewed Bernie Sanders in 2004. Maybe it's just because I have a longer, timeline. But I interviewed Bernie Sanders in 2004 when he was a congressman from Vermont, and I remember saying, like, if we could get, 200 Bernie Sanders, that would be amazing. But I was like, this guy's going to be a backbencher his entire career. And the idea that, 12 years later, he nearly wins the Democratic
Why are a bunch of our stooges repeating these exact talking points on the media they control? Thoughtful face.
Who could say?
is a huge indication of a move to the left.
What do you think it would mean if Trump wins the popular vote?
I would be shocked, but it would mean that there are more people. There are more people who voted for Trump.
But you don't think it's indicative of any kind of like national mandate, like worldview?
What would you say Donald Trump's ideology is?
Trumpism.
Right.
There's got to be a new word for it.
Right.
People like to say fascism or whatever, but these are just archaic terms.
I mean, my biggest worry about Donald Trump is the Republican Party, but that's submerged, I think, from most people's voting. Your average person voting, they're just making a different choice between two personalities, largely. So I would say that is not indicative of an ideological shift as much as it is an aesthetic one.
I think there's RCP has Trump up 0.3. I don't know if it means anything. 2020, Biden was up 8. Some say that RCP is no good because they like to use Rasmussen, but I would just say that
we don't need to argue about polls because we're going to know in 4 days.
Right. It's trending towards in all of the data and prediction models.
Listen,
popular
for every RCP.
There is not even a snowball's chance in hell that Donald Trump wins the popular vote. That is a prediction on par with Tim Pool saying that Donald Trump was going to sweep all 50 states.
Thing that you can say, I can come up with I agree. A significant amount of data that shows that there's reason to believe that the pollsters are overcorrecting from mistakes that they've made in the past.
100%.
So I would say, and
poly market is a prediction market, which means Trump might win by 0.1, but they're showing 65. It doesn't mean anything.
Yes, it's also there was just a report that there's a ton of sort of fake money going in there. It's an offshore thing that is owned by Peter Thiel and
French guy put in 30 million, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's there's people
Nobody
feel
knows.
that there is value in creating that sense that maybe it's a foregone conclusion. I personally think that a lot of it is about Trump trying to gin up what you talked about earlier, a January 6th response, if he loses by creating the expectation that he's definitely going to win. And I think it's going to be close, but I don't think that it's in any way close to even being a foregone conclusion about either one of them.
Completely agree. I have no idea what's going to happen. Everybody thinks they know. I learned my lesson. Sam, I do appreciate you coming on. It's been fun.
Have you learned your lesson? Because this entire thing was an exercise in how very specifically you've learned nothing. Like, goddamn. Tim Pool really comes across as weirdly not caring about anything. I mean, like, it wouldn't surprise me if he was, like, sociopathic. Like, it genuinely would not. Like, he seems to have a pretty blank affect. Maybe, honestly, like, maybe that's, like, part of his charm to a lot of people. Just, like, a blank affect and, like, a lack of curiosity that allows him to just, like, say whatever, and he just doesn't really care about any of the content.
We went an extra hour. Thanks for hanging out.
I hope I get my plane.
Sorry, man. I apologize.
All right.
We'll be back tonight at youtube.com/TimCastIRL if you want to shout anything out.
Wear that hat.
That
That 20th anniversary Majority Report hat is available at our merchandise store.
I want.
In Sam's defense, he did remarkably well for a man who woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning to get on a plane to fly out to a compound in the middle of nowhere to then and then talked at length for 3 hours straight to a man who's absolutely trying to bait him into saying something stupid. Well done, Sam. Hats off to you. And also, beanies off to you. And honestly, I really do want a Majority Report beanie. I do want one.
Wanted to invite you to come on the show tonight, but I know you got to fly out. So
no, I got to fly out. I got to get my kid.
I appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks for hanging out, and for everybody.
Aw, man, Sam's not going to get any sushi with the boys.
Else, hope you had a good time. I hope everybody got their clips in, and they're going to argue who was better. All your fans will say you did. All my fans will say I did, and then, whatever.
I think some of your fans will say I did too.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure.
The level of confidence that Sam said that with is incredible. I want to see that again.
And they're going to argue who was better. All your fans will say you did. All my fans will say I did, and then, whatever.
I think some of your fans will say I did too.
I don't know.
You could actually see his face fall. You could actually see it. The moment it registered, right? But they aren't. I disagree. Like, how many people have watched this? This has been viewed by almost 220,000 people, okay? I think at least a significant, I would even hazard a guess, 20% of the people who viewed this accurately were able to be like, Tim Pool's actually looking like a complete and utter fool right now. They aren't objective and logical. I mean, well, no one is. Not a single goddamn person you've ever met in your life is objective and logical. Believing us to be that is a fallacy, I think. It's fallacious. We are flawed and we are emotional creatures made out of flesh. With like little electricity and chemical blurts in our brains. That's how that like we're not logical creatures. We are not logical constructions. But I will say that like I think that Sam succeeded in his goal here. He made Tim look like a fool and ran circles around him and very clearly demonstrated on multiple occasions that Tim had no idea what the fuck he was talking about. Not a single
Going
clue.
to have to spend the next 2 hours of work crying and watching cute animals to cheer up. Your pauses are the only thing that got me through it. From Caracal.
Well, Caracal, thank you for the $10 super chat. And also, I'm sorry that you're going to have to do some work crying. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. yeah, a lot of the comments are dunking on Tim, probably a little bit of brigading, but still. Yeah, I mean, like, I do think that at the end of the day, Tim thinks that, like, when the cameras are off, like, they can be friends, you know?
I hope everybody got their clips in and they're going to argue who was better. All your fans will say you did, all my fans will say I did, and then, you know, whatever.
I think
You know, like that is genuinely his stance there. You know, your fans will say you did well, my fans will say I did well, and then, you know, nothing matters. And then Sam ruins this perfect fence-sitting balance by making this particular point, you know?
I just wanted to say your political analysis is always spot on.
Aw.
Thanks for the great stream tonight and for fostering a community with good vibes.
Tier Star, thank you for the $10 dono. I very, very much appreciate that. And it has been an almost 10-hour stream on my end, so this is definitely a good time for us to slowly mosey on to bed here. Tomorrow, I think I'm going to start more at like a normal 8 o'clock time, largely because I'll be editing thumbnails and scheduling videos and stuff. This VOD, by the way, this me covering Tim Pool and Sam might not come out until after the election, just because I need to get so many things out, and I think this will be okay. MSG rally. Tomorrow we'll probably cover bits of the MSG rally. I don't think I can cover the full thing because it's like 6 hours long. We'll have to pick and choose the speakers, but we'll definitely cover some of that because I want to get that out before the election as well, so that I can have the Harris closing argument and the Trump closing argument contrasted. There's so much content, Uncle Gumbald, but that's kind of a problem. I don't like so much content, not enough time to post all of it. So we're gonna be choosing what can go up. But I just, before we finish, I want this last few seconds. We have less than a minute of this video left. Let's go.
some of your fans will say I did too.
I don't know.
I love it.
And, you know, whatever.
I think some of your fans will say I did too.
Just very specifically, you can like see his face change. Like he's absorbing it. He absorbed it.
I don't know. I think this we're too partisan. I think people are going to be like, it doesn't matter if Sam has a good idea. He's wrong. You know what I mean? Well, I'll give him some more credit than that. They say you had some good points for sure. We got a lot of moderates. All right, man. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you guys tonight. Bye-bye.
Yeah, a lot of the people who watch me, they'll admit that I get blown out of the water. Just look at this, Lisa. You can actually pinpoint the second at which his heart rips in half. Yeah. Honestly.
Oh no, Sam Seder. Wow, what a fucking nightmare.
And folks, with that, I think I have to bid you all adieu. This has been the largest stream I have ever done. We had like a solid 500 to 600 people for a good few hours. Thank you all for coming and supporting. This is really exciting. I hope you guys come back on election day. I'll be going on a very, very long stream for election day. So folks, please do schedule time to vote and to be here on election day, okay?